know y'all just saw me. But here I am again today, so. Harry not Kwanzaa. And if you want to say Happy Kwanzaa to someone, that's how you can do it. Harry not Kwanzaa. Can you try that? Harry not Kwanzaa. Yes, and this is going to be your educational lesson. I'm going to help you with a couple of things, and I want you to feel comfortable to be uncomfortable. One of them is someone said, this is a really beautiful costume. It is not a costume. It is the clothing of West African people. And this is one of many really beautiful pieces of fabric that you find in Ghana and Sierra Leone, where many of my ancestors and yours come from. And someone told me last year, because we did a whole lot of music, that it just wasn't a service. And I wanted you to know what Kwanzaa was like, and so that was a service. That was Kwanzaa, because Kwanzaa is about understanding a lot of the challenges that people have gone through and then celebrating in between it. And so if you've ever seen some movies where you see what has happened to enslaved people, and you also see them singing, and you see music in black church, it's like when life is hard, the only thing that you can do is to hold the joy to keep you going. Our ancestors were kings and queens in beautiful villages in Africa. They became the results of human trafficking. As social construct created race, they became the results of human trafficking, brought to what has become the Americas as cattle. And the saying goes that you can break a person by removing their language, their customs, their education, their families, and their spirituality. And that's exactly what happened. Our families separated. The use of language was denied by threat of death. Learning how to read, the same. Our customs were colonized for the customs of white enslavers. Our slave labor profited what became the states of the America 400% fold for tobacco, sugar, and cotton. And then later, slavery got exchanged for what became Jim Crow laws, which had penalties up to death for such things as segregation, desegregation of a water fountain, drinking in the wrong place, segregation of buses, segregation of restaurants, hotels, schools, waiting rooms in a doctor's office if you could go to a doctor's office, entrances in movie theaters, and the requirement to call anyone who was white Mr., Mrs., but black people only by their first name. And in the midst of this, there were lots of black and white protests, which included the Freedom Riders, and then many other riots. And the assassination of these three people, whom I'm sure you know. JFK was assassinated in '63, Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. in '68. And in 1965, the Watts riots, which tired many African Americans and their allies, they exchanged nonviolent protests to violent uprisings because they were tired. And the 60s brought voter suppression, housing and job inequality, social customs dictating black and white interactions, even lynching and burnings of houses and churches, and people stood up. And if you thought that there was one black church that was bombed, let me just give you the list of a few. 1921, Black Wall Street Church bombed in Tulsa, Oklahoma. 1955, James AME Church burning in Lake City, South Carolina, 1956. On Christmas Day, Bethel Baptist Church bombed in Birmingham, Alabama in 1957. Allen Temple AME Church, a dynamite explosion in Bessemer, Alabama, doing an evening service, 1958. Bethel Baptist Church bombing number 2 in Birmingham, Alabama, 1962. New Bethel Baptist Church, St. Luke's AME Church, and Triumph Church Kingdom of God and Christ were all firebombed in Birmingham, Alabama. 1962, St. Matthew's Baptist Church burned in Macon, Georgia. 1962, Bethel Baptist Church bombed in Birmingham, Alabama. 1963, St. James United Methodist Church was gasoline firebombed in Birmingham. 1963, the one that people know, 16th Street Baptist Church, which was bombed in Birmingham, Alabama, and killed 4 children. Mount Zion Methodist Church burned in Longdale, Mississippi. 1964, Mount Moriah Baptist Church, Pleasant Grove Missionary Baptist Church, Rankin County, Mississippi, and 15 churches within a 1-week period of that same year. 1966, Second Bethel Baptist Church bombed in Richmond, Virginia. Doesn't it make you tired just to hear that? Imagine the people who were fearful to go to church because they didn't know if they would come back out. And they felt done. And besides that, there was also the boycotts that happened in Mississippi and many other cities, people who were tired of not being able to catch the bus and sit in the front, and more challenging, that if they were required to pay for their ticket in the front and then go around to the back, and then the bus would take off after they had paid for their ticket, they didn't get a seat. And so the boycotts began. Frederick Douglass said, "Where justice is denied, where poverty is enforced, where ignorance prevails, and where any one class is made to feel that society is an organized conspiracy to oppress, rob, and degrade them, neither persons nor property will be safe." Now, if you wonder why you got that history lesson, it was the reason for Kwanzaa. Because it was after all of that, and then the culmination of the Watts riots, that Dr. Maulanga Karenga felt that there was something that was needed to raise African Americans up, that their history was oppressed, that their very identity and being was oppressed, and that something needed to happen to build people up. And so he created Kwanzaa. And he felt that given our history, it was important that African people know their history and honor it, to engage our present and improve it, to imagine a new future and live it, and to forge it into the most beautiful, ethical, and effective ways that have been taught as a part of African tradition. So he started to meet with people and assisted them to be involved in what he called collective achievement. He taught them about self-determination, self-respect, reaffirming the beauty and the resourcefulness of our culture, self-defense, the right to rebel against oppression, the right to not accept that. And when people were enslaved people during that time period, you had to just stand there and be oppressed and be beaten. And he said, you can resist injustice, and people need to feel that they can do that. And he loved the words of Marion McLeod Bethune, who said, "It's up to us to discover the dawn, to see the possibilities, and to share it with the masses of people." And so he created Kwanzaa as an act of freedom, as an instrument of freedom, to really know what it means to be African in the world and what does our culture obligate us to do, to be a celebration of freedom. And many people forget to celebrate. I can remember going to my first church service in which I said, "Amen." And then I looked around, and no one else was making noise except me. And I stood up, and then I sat back down because nobody else was standing up. We've forgotten how to just live into that. But when you are having challenges, and when you see challenges, you gotta hold on to your joy, because it's the only thing that you've got. It's the only thing that enslaved people had, was the minute amount of joy, and they had to just take that and go with it. And he felt that it was important for people to have a practice of freedom, a practice of freedom, where you don't diminish yourself because of what someone else is saying or doing, but that you recognize your own freedom to be, your own freedom of integrity, your own freedom to define who you are and be who you are. So during a time when the very essence of one's identity, being, and sense of belonging was at risk, and it's at risk now, Dr. Karenga went back to the time of our African ancestors. He was like, how did they make it? What did they do? And he developed a series of days that are designed to embed people who are connected to the African diaspora with principles to empower them, to strengthen them, and to encourage them during what he calls for this year, this theme of Kwanzaa, dimly lit times. And I sat with that for a little while. I was like, dimly lit times, what does that mean? And I put it together. Dimly lit times are periods of, or environments characterized by low ambient light illumination, which usually occurs during twilight or dusk, when there's a cloud cover, when you kind of can see, but you kind of cannot. And so when you apply that to the times that we're living in now, dimly lit times refers to any time period where it seems like the light of understanding is subdued by either natural cycles or intentional human design. And I would say that now the dimly lit times are connected to intentional human design. But the question is, how are we in dimly lit times? And those of us who haven't connected back to our African ancestry, and I'm going to include you in a minute, so hold on, we forget, and we get distressed. Oh gosh, what could happen next? Oh, I don't think I can take this anymore. I can't go through another day. And we forget that enslaved people lost everything, and they made it, and they sang, and they danced, and they moved, and they hoped, because they looked beyond the dimly lit time to a time when they knew that life could be better, even if not for them at that time, for others. And so these times that involve a lack of clarity, we're confused about social or political uncertainty, we have lack of access to correct information or available information, and we start to go to a place of pessimism, mental fog. I don't know what's going on. I don't know who's the president. Well, we don't go there. Lack of inspiration, lack of creativity. I can't do anything because I'm just so miserable because of what I heard on the news. But Kwanzaa involves 5 activities and 7 principles. The 5 activities are ingathering of people, that it's important to connect with other people, important to be here, important to connect, to get out of the, I'm going to be by myself and I know that something's going on, but I'm not going to participate. The reference and the honor for creations, where we actually pause. When I was coming here this morning, someone asked me, was it really foggy? And it was, but what I saw was the fog, a low fog, and the trees, and it was beautiful. It was really beautiful. It's like it wasn't worth complaining about. It was worth pausing and going, wow, how does it do that? You know, I can't make it do that. It just does that. And that if we take those moments to honor creation, if I walk through a park, I thank the indigenous people who were there and probably planted the seed. It certainly wasn't me. But I don't just walk through. I don't just walk by, because then we forget. We forget gratitude. We forget the appreciation for what there is. And then there's commemoration of the path. It's understanding that people walked a path that allowed us to be where we are. For anything that is just that we have, it took a lot for someone to get there. I was reminded of that when I walked the Pettus Bridge last year, which I will do again in March, just to remember that someone did that for a reason and that I benefited from it. There's recommitment to our highest cultural ideas, to not forget that we have a culture and to appreciate what it is, and celebration of the good, that you just always celebrate. And so I'm often asked this question. Okay, read it out loud. Why do people celebrate Kwanzaa? Okay. Well, I'm going to give you an answer in a couple of ways. This is the easy way. It says, a people without knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. Amen. So what's the origin of people? Africa. This is a museum that you can go to, and it says, Africa, the cradle of humankind. And indeed, many people are coming to understand that people did not migrate to Africa. They migrated out of Africa to other continents. And what that meant was that the people who were able to migrate out of Africa actually had a lot of knowledge and understanding. They were not ignorant people who didn't know what to do. They were people who knew how to look at the universe and to understand how the moon and the stars went and when it was appropriate for them to be able to move. They learned how to navigate boat systems. They learned how to figure out mapping, how to get back to where you needed to, how to set paths so that someone could return back or could follow you. And reinforced in the Bible, and I've shared this slide before, is the fact that they knew that there were people of color who originated in Africa. And there was a place where during this time period, an angel said to Joseph, go to Egypt, hide the child in Egypt because people are seeking to kill him. Well, if Jesus was white, really? How would you have hidden him in Egypt? It was because everybody there was also brown-skinned. So I think it's important for people of the African diaspora, which is everybody, to give time to reflect on their culture. Because white is not your culture. It's a color that someone unfortunately created as a construct and called people that. You are not white. You are from a continent or many. And you have a culture that is far beyond just being white. It's one of the unfortunate things that has happened to people who consider themselves white, is that they don't know that got robbed. Your culture got robbed of who you are. And so it's important that we learn about our culture and get lifted out and into our culture And that's a part of what Kwanzaa helps people to do. It helps us to understand that people who consider themselves of European descent are Afro-European descent or African-European descent, and maybe many other words that can be added to that. And so, can white people celebrate Kwanzaa? Yes, there's some pictures in there. There's some pictures in there, having a good time. And it's important for us to then learn what the 7 principles of Kwanzaa are, values that strengthen family, community, and culture, and to ask yourself, how do you see yourself and what you do? Do you see what you do as a way to make a living or a way to make a life? Is it a way to make a living or a way to make a life? And if what you do has to do with how you make your life and how you create life for family, culture, and community, it will be different. Do you carry knowledge of the world, knowledge of yourself within the world, knowledge of how to effectively negotiate and live in the world, and how to direct your life toward good and expansive ends in the world? So Kwanzaa tells us that we must bring forth ma'at, which is truth, justice, righteousness, and goodness from within ourselves, that we start here. And so these are the parts of a Kwanzaa table. Charcelle's going to say, oh, I missed one. And they all stand for something else. And so we have the mkeka, which is that. I'll go back. The mkeka is the mat. And, oops, sorry. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Let me go this way. I was doing so good, too. Okay. Oh. See, I really have this. My thumb was just in the wrong spot. So the Mishuba Saba is the kinara and the candles. The one in the middle is black and represents the people. The ones on the red, that are red, represent the struggle of the people. The ones on the right represent the family and the future of the family and the future of people. And so when you light the candle, you start with the black one, and then you go red, green, red, green, red, green. And so today is day 3, and so we would have, if someone can come up and light, we would have start with the red candle, and then take the red candle and light the red one, and then light the green one. And that would be for today. Sure. You have African culture. You start with the black, and then you take the black candle and you light the red candle closest to it. That's day 1, which was the day after Christmas. And then you light the green one. That was day 2. Nope, that's it. That's as far as we go. And so day 1, which was yesterday, was the day of unity. And where people are used to during Christmas time, you wait for somebody to give you a present, you run to the store, and you're like, oh gosh, I'm running out of time, and you give somebody else a present. You work the days of Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is a contemplative time period. And so yesterday was the day of unity, and Karenga used to say we must also constantly reimagine, renew, and remake the world. And so on that first day of Kwanzaa, you ask yourself, what can I do that helps to unify my family or the community or the world? And so yesterday, my daughter said, I'd like to read you, what was the book? Can't remember the name of the book. Anastasia, I think. And it's like this thick. And I said, sure. And I sat next to her, and she read 2 chapters and then gave me the synopsis of all of the information, and I was trying desperately to keep my eyes open and to really, really pay attention to her. And she was so pleased that I did that. And I had my computer near me with this information, and I gave my mind the directive of not concentrating on this talk, but concentrating on her and the gift that she was giving me and what she wanted to do. And that was also her gift to me, was to do something that in that way unified the family. And then my children all came and connected, and we had tea together, and they came 3 or 4 times the same day. And I wasn't expecting that either, but every time they came, we did something together. And they, I think at about 9:30 last night, I said, well, I think I'm going to go to bed now. But I really appreciated the fact that what we did, children don't always do. They don't always reach out and connect with their family. And as they start to get older, often they get busy and then they don't connect, especially with elders. And so they did. And so I did. And that was a lesson to me. And so during the day of Umoja, then you ask yourself, how can I become more connected to my family, to my spiritual community, to my community in general? How can I provide more respect for them? How can I help out in my spiritual home? And I think there are some of you who were probably cooking yesterday for today, and that would have also been a part of unity. How do you bring closure to a disagreement that you have with someone who's a family member that you haven't talked to in ages? Is that the day that maybe you send them a card and say, you're still in my heart? Yeah. And then day 2, which is today, is Kujichagulia. Can you say that? Yeah, Kujichagulia is the day of self-determination, where you do 2 things. You examine, no, that was yesterday. Today is the 28th? Yes. Yeah, so that was yesterday. The other day was the day before. Kujichagulia is the day that you do 2 things. You ask yourself, am I truly who I am? Do I define myself properly or not? You look at what people call you, how you feel about that. You look at what people think of you and how you feel about that. You look at whether or not the presence that you give to people and how you speak and how they take it are aligned. Or do you need to change something about how you share information so that people understand you in the way that is truly who you are? It's also a day when you look at, have I been looking like I am because of somebody else? When I really wanted to dye my hair brown, or when I really wanted to cut my hair or grow it long. And that's the day that you do that. You also look at, is there something that I've been afraid to do, that I've just been putting off because I feel like I'm not good enough, or somebody told me that I couldn't do that. And so for me, one year I reached out to Lynn, and I didn't do it that year, but I said, I'm really deathly afraid of swimming. Can you please teach me how to swim? And she said, I can. And then I thought, oh no. But that's the day that you put that right in front of your face and say, I've been avoiding this all my life, and now it's time to stop doing that. And so let me try that thing. Let me look at what is that thing that holds me back that I need to try. So Lynn, we need to light one more, which would be a red candle, because that's today. which is Ujima. Try that. See, that one's much easier than Kujichagulia. It's collective work and responsibility. And you ask yourself, what is it that you bring to community? So you've recognized that you have community, that you need to connect with community, but what do you bring? Are you the person who just comes and you expect to be served? That's kind of like children who are waiting for someone to turn on the television and entertain them. Or are you a part of community? Because there's something that you do. On my block, my neighbors have a a thing where they can email each other, text each other. And so everybody texts, and sometimes someone will say, cocktails at 5, and then everyone shows up outside of their house. Or like yesterday, someone brought eggnog. And so I came to my door and there was a little jar with eggnog. And so then I looked on the app, and yes, Jenna said, I just learned how to make eggnog, and so I decided that I would share it with everybody. Which is wonderful. I mean, it's an incredible community, but it's a community that does things. And so ask yourself, what do you do? How do you bring something to community, to family, to outside community? Do you complain about what's happening out in the world politically, or do you write a letter? And not just a letter to complain, but do you write a letter for the people who stood up? I was watching this video about a church that was not allowed to they had to take up I think Deanne mentioned it, they had to take up the gay colors on the street. And so this one church, yes, painted each step. I mean, that's courageous. But how many of us wrote a letter and said, whoa, I learned from you? That's what you look at on the day of Ujima. What's my commitment, my time, my talent, and my resources to my community? And if you're not sure that you're going to do it, hold that for when we do the letters in January, and write that to yourself to ask yourself, have you done it? Engage in activities that you haven't been getting done, and do it on that day. And then day 4, and I think Jeannie is going to be inviting people to her house on that day. It's cooperative economics. Ujamaa. And Ujamaa is based on the premise of commitment and the practice of enlarging community wealth by doing the work that's necessary. It's the day that you ask yourself, the place where I put my money in this bank, what is the values that bank holds? Or did I just walk up to a bank and I started an account? Let me find out who they are, really. And what do they stand for? And question that for yourself. And put your money in institutions that hold the values that are yours. And make sure that you do that. It's the day when I don't go to Pete's or Starbucks or any other place like that. I make sure that the only thing that I do is local. Because it's a day that the cooperative economics are for your community. And so you pay attention to that, and you pay attention to how you spend your money, and you ask yourself, let me look at what percentage of money goes to junk stuff, what percentage of money goes to my commitment, and look at that so that you actually see it and you know that there is a percentage that goes toward things that have to do with your values, not that you just randomly say yes. And then day 5, oh, that's your day. That's my birthday. Yes. That is December 30th, and that is the day of purpose. And that's when you do some soul searching. Does my life align with my purpose? Is there something else that I should be doing or should not be doing so that who I am is really true? And then you set goals. Do I need an educational goal? Do I need a vocational goal for the coming year? Be daring, be different, be impractical, be anything that will assert integrity of purpose and imaginative vision on that day and ask yourself, what is it? And then day 6 is Kuumba, which is the day of creativity. What are your talents? What are your ideas that you've had? What has been stifled that you can pull up? Can you do that now? Invite a friend, share a talent with them. Invite a community, sing to your neighbors. Capture your creative expression and how that can benefit community. And then day 7 is faith, imani. And imani isn't faith in God per se. It includes faith in something that is spiritual and higher, but it starts with faith in yourself. How much do you really trust you to do the things that you thought you couldn't? And how much do you trust other people? Or do you actually assume that they're not going to come through? And do you live your life like that? It's never going to be better. He's not going to do what he said. And that's the day when you actually look at that and see yourself doing something that you thought that you couldn't, come to grips with somebody else who hasn't come through and give them some grace that maybe it's something they cannot do. And rather than looking at them for what they didn't do, look at them for who they are and what they have done. And so if you thought that Kwanzaa was easy, it's not easy, but it's one of the most joyous things that I could ever fill my life with. And sometimes I will take the same days of Kwanzaa, 7 days of Kwanzaa, and I will make them weeks, so that for 1 week I'm living umoja. For 1 week I'm living kujichagulia. And sometimes I do it for months. 1 month I'm living umoja. Another month I'm trying to call Lynn to ask her if she will give me swimming lessons. And so it's not something that you lose like Christmas, like the day is gone, somebody says, oh, the holidays are over. Well, not for me, because it's about how I've learned to live my life amidst dimly lit times. And so I don't know if the let's see. No, it isn't. Let me give you this really quick. The Unity Cup, is there a cup? Okay. The Unity Cup is also a part of Kwanzaa, and we share. And so when we go through these days, this is where you are now. And so I encourage you to pay attention to what comes in through Unity about the other days. Know that tomorrow you would think about whether or not you're really going to go to Starbucks or Pete's and other kinds of things that you can do. But think about living those days and what that would mean for you. And that might end up looking different for every person, but it should. And so I love this quote that says, not everyone will understand your journey. That's fine. It's not their journey to make sense of your journey. It's yours. And that's what Kwanzaa does for each person, is to help you to learn about your culture, your values, yourself, your community, and to celebrate like heck. So I want you to just give that a moment. And I'm just going to say the days for you while Jeremy plays a little bit. Umoja, unity. Kujichagulia, self-determination. Ujima, collective work and responsibility. Ujamaa, cooperative economics. Nia, purpose. Kuumba, creativity. And Imani, faith. So let's have faith in the sacred teachings of our ancestors, which say to us across the millennia, let's do things with joy. For surely humans have been divinely chosen to bring good to the world. And this is the fundamental mission and meaning of human life. Thus, chosen through history to constantly strive to bring good to the world, we must audaciously and ceasingly dare to do so. And let us dare also to help rebuild the overarching moments that prefigure and make possible the good that we hold for ourselves, our community, and the world we want, and the world that we deserve to live in. And so the affirmations, say it with me. As we honor a uplifting and liberating tradition, we must sing to the sunshine and call forth a new day and a new dawn of inclusive freedom and justice. And so it is. Amen. Ashe.